We now get to work on rounding and estimation. Now, if you consider somebody who has a bank account, has $528.33 in there. That's what the bank will put because they have to be exact. However, if they were to tell you, bragging about how much money they had in their bank, they might say, I have about $500. Most people would think that they made an accurate statement. Yeah, that's around $500. If you're really nitpicky, you might think, I don't think you're exactly right. That's the whole point. This about gives you some leeway. Says, we're getting in the ballpark. So, you could also say, I have about $530. Also a correct statement. You could say, I have about $528. Now you'll notice that at each stage, we're closer to what the real value is, but we're not exact on any of them. We're still about. You could even say, I have $528 and about 30 cents. Anytime you're saying any of those, you have rounded. You've said, you know what? If you are counting by hundreds and somebody only understood in hundreds, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, well, this is somewhere between $500 and $600. And you're really headed off to the nearest hundred. So if you look at these places, here's the cents or hundredths, tenths, ones, tens, hundreds. And right here you're saying, okay, if everything else behind that is 0, what's the closest? A 5 or a 6. And that's where we get this 500. If you're rounding to the nearest tens, that's hundreds. Here's the nearest ones, because it's to the nearest one whole dollar. This is to the nearest tenths, or tenths of a dollar, a dime. So we've just taken this number and rounded it. Now you may wonder, why would you round in the first place? What is the purpose of rounding? Well, as you did your multiplication tables, there were a couple of them that were nicer than the rest. So we're going to go through and tell you why rounding would be so good. Rounding is valuable, particularly because, if you remember, you had something like 15 times 11, and you're like, okay, 15 times 11, you had to memorize what that was. 15 times 11 was 165. There were some patterns that you could pick up, but not necessarily easy. However, 15 times 10, you're like, 150. And 14 times 10, 140. It was really nice because this thing right here, all it did was add a 0 to everything. That's what all the 10s did. And so we come in, if we have something like, okay, 528 times 39, we're like, oh, that's going to be kind of a problem. If you don't need to get a precise answer, and you're okay with an about, then you're able to round and get about an idea. So this is about 500. If you were to round to the nearest hundred up here, you have 500. And here we have 39 that's about 40. Right here, if you round to that nearest highest place right there, that becomes a 4. The 9 takes it up to a 4, and you get 40. Now this becomes really easy because you know 5 times 4, that's a 20. And then you add a 0, add a 0, add a 0. It's about 20,000. You should note that we haven't really done the math. We've just got an approximate answer. Kind of helps to know whether or not when you do this problem for real, it's going to come out kind of close to 20,000. That's the idea of rounding ahead of time so you can estimate later. This is the process of estimation.
Okay, Brother O'Shaughnessy, let's give them some problems to practice with.
To the boards! Hello and welcome to the boards. In this section, we are going to give you an opportunity to apply what you've learned. We'd like you to go ahead and attempt these 4 problems in your video notebook. So take out your notebook and try these 4 problems using the estimation skills that you just learned in the video. Estimate each number and then do the multiplication or division problem. Go ahead and pause the video now, and when you're ready to check your answer, unpause it and we'll go through it together. Okay, welcome back. It's time to try these 4 problems using estimation skills. So the first thing we're going to do is number 1. We need to do 71 times 29. I'm going to round each of these numbers to their furthest left digit. So here we have 71. The closest that 71 is to is 70. I round it to the nearest 10. 29 is also in the tens place, so I'm going to round 29 to be 30. So what we have here is 70 times 30. When I do that, I know that 7 times 3 is 21, and there's 2 zeros, so my answer is going to be 2100. Let's try number 2. Ooh, here we have a 3 in the hundreds column, so I'm going to round this number to the nearest hundred. 374 would be closest to 400 because the 7 would make it round up. So I'm going to round 374 to 400. 62, I have a 6 in the tens column. The number next to it is a 2. So I'm going to go ahead and round that down to 60. So what I have here is 400 times 60. Okay, well I know 6 times 4 is 24. And let's see how many zeros we have. 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I'd write in 3 zeros. My answer comes out to be 24,000. Not bad. Let's check on how you did on number 3 here. On number 3, I have a 4 in the hundreds column, and so I'm going to round to the nearest hundred. 481, when rounding to the nearest hundreds, ooh, I got an 8, so I'm going to round this number up. It's going to be 500, and we're going to divide it by 4.91. Now this number is in the ones column, so I'm going to round to the nearest 1. Since there's a 9 after it, I'm going to round this number to a 5. So I have 500 divided by 5. Well, 500 divided by 5 would be 100. And that's my answer for number 3. Number 4, let's check it. Here I have a number in the hundred thousands column, so I'm going to round to the nearest 100,000. Because there's a 3 next to it, I'm not going to round it up. It gets rounded down to 100,000. My first number here in the number 14 is in the tens place, so I'm going to round that depending on this 4 next to it, so it's going to get rounded down as well. So I have 100,000 divided by 10. Okay, 100,000 divided by 10, well, that would cancel out one of my zeros, so my final answer would be 10,000. Great work with these 4 problems. Keep working hard in the next section.
So let's make sure you've got down where the places are. There we go. From the decimal point, if you go this way, you have ths. A ths would be a portion of a whole number. That's why it's behind the decimal place. So here you have the whole ones. And they don't know what else to call that. Some people call it the units or the whatever. If you're talking in dollars, that's how many whole dollars you have. If you're talking in inches, that's how many inches you have, or feet, or whatever unit you're dealing with. That's why they call it the units digit. So here is the tens. So that's how many tens there are. That's how many hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. This is how many 100,000s we have. This is how many millions, 10 millions, 100 billions, and billions. Going the other way, there's the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and 10,000ths. So this will help you with the rounding to get it to the right place. To remind you of the rules, if you're going to the nearest, in this number, say the nearest 1,000, you will notice that you have like, 6,423,817,293, blah, blah, blah. So this is 817,000. Now, that means you're 817,000, 818,000, and you're somewhere right in the middle. How do you know which one's it's closer to? Well, right smack dab in the middle would be exactly 500, between 17,000 and 18,000. So you look at this number. If this number has a 5, then you're half or higher. If it's not, then you're closer to the 17,000s. So you check out this number right here, 5 or more, this goes up to an 8. 5 or less, this goes back down to the 7. And so rounding at the nearest 1,000 would be, and the rest is just zeros. Because that's what we're doing, we're getting to closest 1,000.
All right, let's have a few more practice problems.
Welcome to the boards. It's your turn to try some practice problems about rounding. Here we have 4 questions. What we'd like you to do is take out your video notebook and give these 4 problems a try. When you're ready to check your answer, go ahead and unpause the video and we'll work through them together. You can pause now. Okay, welcome back. Let's try these 4 rounding problems. The first one says round 4,234 to the nearest 10. So I'm going to go ahead and underline the tens column. This right here is the tens. This is thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. And so I need to decide if it's going to stay a 3 or round up to a 4. We'll know by comparing it with this number. That 4 is less than 5, and so therefore I'm not going to round it up. It's going to be 4,230 will be my answer. Let's try the next one. It says round 645,919 to the nearest 1,000. Okay, well, I'm going to underline the thousands here. The thousands, there's a 5. And when I compare it to the next column over, there's a 9. Now that is greater than 5, and so therefore we are going to round this value up. My final answer is going to be 646, because the 5 gets rounded up, and the rest becomes zeros. 646,000 is the answer. Okay, next one. I need to round 72.945 to the nearest 100th. Ooh, this TH here means that it's a decimal value. So let's see. The nearest 100th. This would be the tenths column. This would be the hundredths column. And this would be the thousandths column. I definitely want the hundredths column. It's a 4, and when I compare it to the next number over, the next number over is a 5. And so because it's a 5 or greater, it's going to get rounded up. And so my answer is going to be 72.9, and that 4 is going to get rounded up to a 5. There's my answer, 72.95. Let's check this last one. Round 9,455.24 to the nearest 10th. Okay. The nearest tenths column is going to be right here. It's that 2. I'm going to need to compare it to the next number over. The next number over is a 4, which is not big enough to make it round up. And so my final answer here is going to be 9,455.2. It did not round up. How'd you do? Hopefully you did well and are able to correct any mistakes that you had. Feel free to continue with the video. Keep working hard.
So, to review on estimation, you're going to round to the highest level place and then do the easy problem. We're not going to get into the actual multiplication and division until next week. And so right now we just want you to be able to estimate things. For example, if you have a problem where you are saying, okay, I have a job that's going to pay me $423 per week. And there are 52 weeks in a year. How much money am I actually getting? 423 times 52. Well, you estimate and you say, okay, 400 times 50. And again, 5 times 4 is 20. 1, 2, 3. You're going to get about 20,000 per year. So these kind of problems are very handy that way.